My name is Kim Fuller with Newport Healthcare, and thank you for spending some time with us today. We're glad to have you here. I'm going to introduce to you our Vice President for Clinical Outreach, Kristen Wilson. Hey, Kristen, take it away.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to tell you a little bit about Newport Healthcare, and then I'm going to introduce Dr. Nosal. So Newport Healthcare is a gender-specific family of evidence-based healing centers for teens and young adults who are struggling with mental health, substance abuse, or eating disorders. But really the crux of the program is about creating authentic connections. We know that our kids come in with all different backgrounds and histories, but we really believe that them and their families are all universally needed healing. Through 11 years of outcome-studied and clinically sophisticated programs, we believe that as authentic, positive connections with self, peers, and family are explored and emerge, healing truly begins, and old maladaptive behaviors are no longer needed. The power of connection has never been more important than it is now, and we're being given a unique opportunity to build connections with our families in a really different, unique way. How do we use this time to help foster and deepen more meaningful connections in our own families? Today, we're going to talk about creating safe spaces for conversations to happen, creating a toolbox of interactive activities and creative rituals to put the fun back in family, and how to maintain meaningful connection even after this crisis ends. Dr. Babara Nosal is Newport Healthcare's Chief Clinical Officer and developed and oversees the clinical and family programs for all of our residential and outpatient treatment programs. Dr. Barb has worked with adolescents and families in the field of mental health for more than 20 years. Her work focuses on restructuring family dynamics and relationships by empowering parents with improved communication and healing family of origin childhood trauma. As a result, families are able to identify how their communication in the present is often a trauma response from the past. We're really looking forward to this workshop. Dr. Barb, take it away.
Thank you, Kristen. And I am really excited to be here. One of the great things that I get to do as part of the Newport Academy and Newport Institute family programs is working with families. And I have to say that this has been for me over the last 11 years that I've been with Newport Healthcare, the most rewarding work we can do. And so we're going to talk first a little bit about looking at what's currently going on amidst the crisis and thinking, how can I use this time? Okay, how can I do things differently? And so if this current pandemic was a personal message to you from the universe, just think about what the universe might be trying to tell you. I have always complained I don't have time for, or I've always wanted to change, something you've always wanted to do, okay? And some of the demands and stress of your daily routine have been taken away. Okay, so this is an opportunity for us to think about, what can I do differently during this time? Some of you being home, working remotely, some of your children being home. And one of the pieces for me is always about using this time to really strengthen our relationships and connection. So if we look back, and I just think whatever that might be, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and if things happen for a reason, what is the reason or the good that could come out of this situation for you? And how you used this time to make really positive changes in your life and with your family. Because it really always starts with us. And one of the things that we, teach parents a lot of different parenting skills, one of those pieces is about modeling the behavior we want to see. And so we know children take cues from their parents, and they align with or react to your emotions. One of the things that we'll do in Newport, we'll have multi-family process groups. And this is where we have the parents and child in the same group. And we do a check-in as to how we're feeling in the moment. So I can have a teen or a young adult who says, I am so excited to see my parents. I'm so happy. I'm feeling really calm. And then mom or dad will check in and say, I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm concerned. You know, the next dad will say, I'm worried, fearful. If I went back to the child and said, I want to check in with you again, how are you feeling in this moment? They are going to take on some of those emotions and say, I'm feeling really concerned. I'm confused. I don't understand. You know, they also take on our stress. And so, you know, when we're feeling anxious, and however we might be venting that stress in the moment, whether it's verbally with a little outburst, or we might be rushing or pacing and look very hurried, our children take on that stress and then they begin to model that. And so I always say that the result of, you know, my venting when I was stressed and forgetting that there was a child in the room, you know, is the result of him having anxiety or panic disorders. They take on our emotions. And so some of what we want to look at is we don't want to share our stress with our children. We also don't want to demonstrate it in front of them. And whenever something happens, whatever that may be, you know, feeling shame or guilt or somehow that it is your fault, they're going to take that on as well. So when they also see you anxious and stressed, they always think it's about them, that they caused it, even if it is work related. And so we want to be clear to communicate that to our children. You know what? This isn't about you. It's about this situation. So some of our parents' don'ts are not to get caught up in the media frenzy and come out of this with a really fear-based negative attitude, which is all around worry and stress or lack or limitation. Looking at what we can't do. We don't want to focus on what we can't do. We want to focus on, during this pandemic, it has given us the opportunity to do. Or what can we do? What are the possibilities? And again, we want to avoid being, you know, really anxious or frustrated, you know, in front of our children. We're doing this for ourselves as well, okay, but especially in front of our children. You know, so we manage stress and we vent. We all need to vent. And we want to do that with appropriate adults, not with your children or any other child. You know, we always acknowledge we are doing the best we can. You're doing your best with what you got right now, with what you know and the resources. You know, we really suggest that as we go through different situations and, you know, whether it's this pandemic or another crisis in your family, you need support. And even if you were to go to a parent support group and everyone's issues were different, you know, someone may have an issue with their child who's a toddler, developmental issues. Someone else may have an issue with their teenager that might be substance use, or their spouse. It really doesn't matter. The feelings, the emotions are the same. And so going and connecting with other parents who are sharing similar emotions, if not situations, can be really helpful. And then engaging in other positive parenting practices. So we always say that, you know, it begins with us, you know, and so this is a time for us to really reflect. You know, the greatest shifts in self-awareness and personal growth don't occur during our day-to-day routine. They really occur during a crisis, because that is the time that we reflect upon what's occurring and maybe how it's impacting us or how we can do better. This is really a time for all of us to examine and reflect upon our own beliefs and values and inner conflicts, as well as our personal worldview, how we view others. You know, looking at what are our stress or negativity triggers? What are the things that begin to make us anxious or frustrated? What are my limitations? You know, some of you are single parents, or, you know, some of you have other whether it is, financial, environmental, limitations. And you've got to really acknowledge those because each of our situations are unique. Also your own parental influences. And what I mean by that is your parents. We talk a lot about family of origin work and how, the family that we grew up in influences how we parent, our emotional and relational patterns. And so it's a great opportunity to really reflect upon those and say, what is it that I want to do differently? What are my goals, my priorities, and my expectations? And are those reasonable? So a few of the ways that we can develop self-awareness is through self-reflection and journaling, meditation. Mindfulness is something that we do in all of our Newport healthcare programs several times a day. Just 2 minutes of silence or a visualization, guided imagery, just something to be able to get us grounded, centered, and present in the moment. Anytime that we have looping thoughts, I can't really think, I can't concentrate or focus because I've got this in my mind, that is the time to practice mindfulness, to come back into the present moment, to avoid either, whether it's fear of the future, or anger, resentment, anxiety from the past. We want to get back to the present moment where we can regulate our emotions, focus, and come up with a logical, reasoning, which we can't do when we're feeling overly stressed. And then some of the other ways are you can go online and take all kinds of personality tests that talk about self-awareness. I always say, if your children are old enough, you can ask them their perception. They will be more than happy to tell you, or to inquire with a trusted friend or a therapist if you have one that you're working with, other parents, etc. So during this time, it's so important to be practicing self-care. And self-care is not being selfish or self-centered. We have got to take care of ourselves first as parents before you can take care of your children. And again, this connects back to being a positive role model. Let your children see that you are taking care of yourself. So you go back to doing what you love. What is it that you enjoyed that really you are passionate about, it filled you up, that you may not have had time to do over the last few years, whether that is spending alone time, reading, watching a movie, journaling, spending time in nature, some kind of physical movement, taking a yoga or Pilates class, going for a walk, a bike ride, working out, some type of creative expression. And oftentimes these may be things you may have never done: drawing, painting, sculpting. Okay, but then it may be something that you've always wanted to try. And this is really the time to tap into and see, what is it that I really love? What are the things that, wow, I'm really good at this, maybe I'm not, it doesn't matter, but I really enjoy it. And then again, music is often a great way for us to just reconnect with ourselves. Relaxation, if we've had a very hectic routine with work and school, often our own downtime or sleep, those are the things that we don't take care of ourselves. We don't get enough of. Socialization for many people is also a way that really fills them up, connecting with others, or a sense of accomplishment. Doing those things that you've wanted to do that you just really have not had the time can make you feel like you've really accomplished something. So we talked a little bit about mindfulness, and I just really want to go back and touch on this once again. As I mentioned, it is something that really helps us to minimize those looping thoughts or when we're feeling overwhelmed, and allows us to feel our emotions in our body. And we just sit there in that silence and allow those feelings to pass. When we do this with parents at the beginning of a group and they've come in and they're really anxious about something, within 2 minutes, they will say how much calmer they are and they're feeling really in the present, that they've been able to let go of those thoughts or feelings, or at least that they have, reduced the intensity. So that's something we really encourage you to practice. Another thing that we do at Newport Healthcare is we will practice a lot of DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. We use more DBT informed skills as a way to reduce stress and increase tolerance. And one of these is called accepts, and it is just a way to temporarily distract us. Now, if we're working on a major, issue, that there's something that we really need to process. Therapeutically, we would say we don't really want to distract ourselves from that issue. We want to work through it. But sometimes, and especially when we're stressed out, we just need something to be able to interrupt, that level of stress from rising. So doing something we enjoy, physical movement will change the body, change the mind. You just get up and you move, and it changes your mindset. Focusing on others by being of service, when we put the attention on someone else, it takes the attention away from how we're feeling. Practicing gratitude, we always have something to be grateful for. And, I will jokingly say to a lot of our teens and young adults, I've never met, a grateful, depressed person. It's kind of hard to hold those two emotions. If you're really practicing gratitude, to be able to also feel discouraged and sad and hopeless. So practicing that, because there is always something, just the fact that we're here breathing today is something to be grateful for. Humor, not sarcasm, because sarcasm can be hurtful, but really, humor and just laughing about things can also change our emotions. As I mentioned, move, do something else, really will push away a lot of the anxiety or stress. Challenging yourself to let go. One of the things we'll do is called thought stopping, where just in your mind, when you have a thought that may be negative, you just hold up in your mind a stop sign. That's basically saying stop. And at that moment, really challenge yourself to let go of that and say, I'm not going to go down that path. And then, of course, utilizing your 5 senses. And this goes back to a little bit about mindfulness, because, I talked about mindfulness as a way to, be in the present with silence or visualization. There's many ways to practice mindfulness, such as mindful eating, and really, taking a piece of chocolate or a banana and savoring every bite. Or going for a mindful walk where you actually pay attention to every step you take, from the sole of your foot to the heel, and really the movement. When you do this and then look up, it just appears that the world is so much brighter. The flowers, the trees, everything just seems so much more crisp, because you're in the moment engaging like all of your senses. Another skill that we use is called improve, and this is a relaxation technique, again, to reduce stress. Imagining relaxing scenes. You have access to the internet. There's so many beautiful, pictures that you can look at, whatever it is that you find relaxing, whether it's the ocean, an island, mountains, desert, the woods, finding what is that relaxing scene. Maybe you have that from previous vacations. Make a slideshow or video of places that you've been that really, get you in that place of feeling very relaxed. Finding some purpose in your feelings, finding the meaning behind what it is that you're feeling, rather than just getting overwhelmed with the intensity of the emotion. For some of us, we may have some type of practice, whether it be prayer, contemplation, reflection, meditation, again, engaging in those moments brings us into the present. Relaxing your muscles, doing some kind of stretching, and then really, letting that go, tightening, flexing, relaxing. And again, as I said, focusing on the present moment is so important. Just take one thing. Don't get overwhelmed. We don't have to do everything. Okay, focus on one thing, which is the present. Now, we may not be able to take a physical vacation right now, but we can definitely take one in our mind. We can take mini breaks, whatever that looks like, to be able to give yourself a break. And then most importantly, you really have to be your own cheerleader. If you are feeling overwhelmed, okay, again, make your mantra, I am doing the best I can. With what I know, with what I have, I am absolutely doing my best. And sometimes, and we'll do this with parents, sometimes it's really important for us to be able to lower our expectations, both in ourselves and our children. It's normal right now for parents and children to feel frustrated, disappointment, discouraged. Okay, it's okay to take time out, to have alone time. This is uncharted waters for all of us. Oh, so don't expect that you have to have all the answers or that you have to know what to do. I always say we're in this together and we'll figure it out together. And then set those same age-appropriate expectations with your children. So really being okay with answering your children's questions, depending upon their age, giving them age-appropriate factual information without all the worrying, the fear, the limitation, the lack. Really demonstrate confidence in, the health and government orders that we've been getting. So if you show a lot of fear and uncertainty around what's going on and not having confidence in the situation being managed, our kids are going to feel that too. It's important to talk to your teens and young adults on the importance of social distancing and really emphasizing that, the directives to stay at home are really to keep us safe and that it's only temporary. And one of the things I will always say to parents is you can do anything for a short term. When it's only temporary, you can do anything, and being able to find a way to be able to maneuver through this time. One of the pieces, when I think of what's the silver lining that can come out of this situation, I really have to say this is a time to develop a deeper, more meaningful connection in your family relationships. And that type of connection really requires emotional safety. And so it's important for parents to really look at and ask themselves, do I actively listen and validate? Or is my tendency to interrupt, offer advice, because what I have to say may be more important than what my child is saying? Am I really listening through everything that they have to say? Am I emotionally present, available, responsive? Or am I multitasking and half listening? And for me, a great example of that is that when my son was really young and he would talk to me, my body was there, physically I was there. I guess my mind was what I have to do next. Not quite sure where it was. It wasn't there because even as a little kid, he said to me, "Hello, is anyone home?" Because he could tell I wasn't listening. So kids can tell by our nonverbals, by our presence, whether or not we are engaged. Are we actively listening? And communication is always the number one thing that kids will tell us at all ages, from 12 to 20s. The one thing that needs to change in the family, okay, for them to have a better relationship. So we have to look at our part first. And sometimes if we're not able to, again, it's okay to ask. If you have a spouse or other older siblings, excuse me, if you have children and then some of them are older, to be able to ask them. Because our nonverbals may be that we're unaware or unconscious of, and they have to be brought to our attention. I've had this happen with so many parents that we've worked with over the years who, as their child was talking, unconsciously, they were not aware that their head was going like this, shaking their head no as their child talked, okay, not even knowing what they're saying, rolling their eyes, okay, in disapproval. Or I had a dad who did this eyebrow, and the daughter felt every time my dad's eyebrows go up, that means he's going to get angry. He probably did at one point, and then she made that association. So really being aware of your, facial expressions, your posture, your presence. And if you don't know, you can always ask. Because really healthy relationships are based on that improved communication and time spent together. Okay, you really have to invest in not only I'm listening to you, because that requires spending time, and then being able to maneuver through conflict. And that really comes with mutual trust, respect, and honesty. And I know that working with teens, which is the time of the most intense parent-child conflict, right? That is the time that it is most intense. Parents will often say, my child does not respect me. And the child will often say, that's because my parents don't respect me. So it is mutual. And unfortunately, as adults, as the parents, it really does start with us. It starts with us modeling and demonstrating to our children what's possible in relationships for them to be able to practice that as well. So we know that all of our parents want a better relationship with their child, and children want that deeper connection with their parents too. And that does not matter if you have a toddler, a preteen, a teen, a young adult. They only get one mom and one dad, and they really do want a better relationship. So it starts with active listening, which really does say you're important to me. As I said, these are some of the things that we're looking at. We're going to maintain that physical and emotional presence with the eye contact, awareness of our nonverbals, okay, avoiding the interruptions, distractions, and then we're going to validate. Now, validation just says, I understand your experience, and you're going to validate the feelings. It does not mean I agree with you. It also doesn't really require any words. It can be a hug, kind gesture, unspoken words, rubbing a child's back. Okay, that's validation. I know this is hard for you. And so as an example, when you think of validation, because again, it is not agreement. And so your child is asking you, here we are in this pandemic, and there's some social event. Somebody's having a party and they want to go. And let's just say it's a 16-year-old, and that's what 16-year-olds do, is they do parties or it's a sleepover. So you want to listen, okay? Before you say no and give all the reasons why, you want to listen and then validate. I understand you want to have this sleepover or go to this party. Of course you do. You're 16. That's what teenagers do. I know this is really hard for you, and it's hard for a lot of people right now. That's not a good idea. Okay, and I can't. We've taken so many precautions, right, to remain safe. I just can't have you go right now. So what is it that we can do since we're here as a family? What is it that we can do to have some fun tonight and offer an alternative activity? Okay, something that maybe they choose or that they enjoy. So you're going to validate that you understand their feelings, what they want to do, but it doesn't mean you give in. This is where we step into our parental power. We are open, we listen, we validate, but ultimately, as parents, we make the decision. And children, and even young adults in a little different way, but they want that guidance. Okay, obviously, younger children need us to set that boundary and make that decision. And as our kids get older, we want to include them, engage them in the process. There may be some compromise negotiation and even framed in a way, what do you think? Why would you think that's a good idea? How do you think that might work? Asking them to do some problem solving. But ultimately, as the parents, we want to step in, okay, with that guidance of where they should be going with this. Okay, what is this going to look like? So we demonstrate an emotional presence. So we shift the focus from behavior to child's experience or feelings. Okay, so when we focus on behavior, typically and this is as a society, not just parents, but we do tend to look at what went wrong, the negative, rather than necessarily acknowledging the positive. Okay, so we want to get right now, just shift away from any kind of negative behavior to really focus on the child's experience. So in the example about the child wants to go to a sleepover or party, shifting away from the behavior would mean I wouldn't bring up, oh, why would I ever let you do that? Because every time you go to a party, you come home smelling like beer, or, this happened. Is not bringing up the past behavior. That's not helpful. That is going to get your child, you're not going to have that connection. You're actually going to go like this. Child's going to get really defensive. I just let that go. You don't have to say, why would I let you go when every time in the past this happened? But just go to the experience, to the feelings. I know you want to go, make sense. Okay, maybe in a different situation, that's something we could talk about, but not right now. Not a good idea for you to be going out and being with other, people. Right now we're practicing social distancing and stay-at-home orders. So we respond. We don't want to be reactive. Really manage those emotions and really come across without the criticism or the justification. I always say 90% validation, 10% rationalization. Why you're saying no. That's only 10%. The rest of it is validating your child's experience and emotions. And then looking, what do they really need? Okay, what would be helpful? And if you don't know, ask. Okay, how can I support you right now? Okay, if they're looking like they're really sad and down, or they're isolating in their room, okay, honey, I don't know what's going on with you, but I'm here to support you, and I'd love to know, like, what would be helpful for you right now? What do you need? You create that open dialogue. Age-appropriate communication. So, of course, younger children, as I mentioned, they need more parental controls. They need those boundaries. They really need you to control, protect, provide for them. And as they get older, they do want that sense of independence and autonomy. So you're going to blend in the guidance with them feeling that they have some control. Ask questions. Don't make assumptions. Ask clarifying questions. It is not about us. And so we really want to avoid taking our child's behavior personally, which is something that we often will do. And looking at if your child was disrespectful and saying things to you that are really inappropriate. Okay, really, that's just showing their level of stress, anxiety, frustration. So instead of, don't you dare talk to me like that, who do you think you are? I'm your mother, talk to me with respect. You might want to come in with, you're sounding really frustrated right now, and I would love to know what's going on with you. We're not going to talk like this. So when we can have a conversation really calmly without the profanities, okay, I am very interested to know what's going on. Okay, so shifting away from that focus on the negative or the behavior. Blaming and attacking doesn't work. Okay, you want to share your feelings, and give information without it being pointing the finger or a threat or an order. kids really react positively to choices. So look for the positive, okay, rather than focusing on the problem, and allow your children to ask questions, share concerns, express their frustrations. Okay, they're missing out on a lot. And that's what we're going to talk about, some of the things that we can do during this time. Help them to feel heard and validated. That really helps them to process their feelings. And ask for support with what they need without parents fixing it. So we want to balance structure with flexibility. We know that children and teens both thrive with structure and predictability. So we want to maintain as much structure as we can with a routine that is blended with flexibility and spontaneity. Okay, so you may have had a really structured routine and now things are a little mixed. You want to put some routine in there. Have some virtual learning time, specific expectations without micromanaging. Have some virtual fun time. Set limits on your technology with scheduled unplugged times. Okay, these might be times that you're going to do things with the family and be interactive. Have virtual physical activity, live stream workouts, videos on YouTube, go for a walk, a bike ride, and have some set times for meals and family time. So bringing that structure into, your child being home. For those of you working remotely, it can be really challenging when your child sees mommy or daddy are home. So again, you want to establish and communicate routines with your children. So when mommy closes the door, it means mom's at work. And I'll be home from work at 5. And I get a lunch break at noon. And really going through this piece of explaining to children what it means to work from home. And this is just a cute little kind of sign on the door, okay, that says when the door is closed, it's as if, I got in my car, right? I went off to work. I'm not here. And if I can, and because if it's 9 a.m. and saying I'll be home from work at 5, a child, that's just way too long. But being able to say, if I can work for the next half hour or hour and get a few phone calls done, I can take a break at 3 and then we can play this game. Okay, and then if your child's really young, showing them when it is, when 3 o'clock is. But really being able to take little short breaks, spending time with them, and then going back in to be able to do your work, rather than trying to manage both. I'm trying to work, but I'm here for my kids, and it's all blended together. Separate it out. Work is here. That's work time. This is family time. One of the pieces for us, and we do this, we're talking about in the midst of a pandemic, but we do this with families regardless. Okay, if you're in crisis or not, you've got to put some fun back in the family. Many of us really focused on work and school and extracurricular activities and all the demands that you have in your everyday schedules. There is no fun. It's very serious. We come home from school, we do our homework, we have dinner, you do more homework, you do this, you go to bed. Okay, structure is great, kids need it. We also need to have some fun. So you want to have these family fun nights. Interactive activities. This is leisure, kind of board games, puzzles, trivia, whatever it is, not electronic. Okay, it is interactive. Recreational time, walks, hikes, bike ride, whatever that might be. Watch a movie together. That would be the only, I'm going to say, like electronic, is watching a movie where you rotate who chooses the movie, or if it's an inspirational documentary or travel guide that, each person in the family, presents where they want to go on their next vacation. Okay, so they come up with a little video and presentation of, the next vacation for the family. And then at the end, you vote on it. Coming up with alternative family activities that are, with the entire family, as well as having separate siblings only. If it's, dad, daughter, mother, son. Okay, really coming in and, spending that quality time together, watching a comedy, sharing jokes, One of my recent clients who is 22, and the dad had said, I feel like my daughter doesn't think I'm approachable. We don't have a close relationship. She's close to her mom, but we've just never had one. I'm wondering if she thinks I'm not approachable. And I was like, wow, that's a great question. You might want to ask her. And she's 22. I would ask that of a teenager though, as well. And, in her mind as a little child, because dad worked all the time, and when he wasn't working, he was playing golf or doing other things, she interpreted that he did not want a relationship with her because he never had time for her. Okay, so here, she's 22, but what a gift to be able to recognize that, for dad to know that his daughter felt he didn't have time for her, and now he can change that by doing some of this. So, we always suggest having these family rituals, and you set these up as much as you can do. We say, we're doing this now, and we want to continue as much as we can, whether we're in crisis or not. So doing it possibly, on the weekends, a family project day. Okay, what are the things that we've been talking about we're going to do, and we have been doing those together as a family. The family fun night that I just talked about, doing those meal times, preparing, sharing meals. If your children are old enough, having them choose the menu, order the food, ingredients online, helping to prepare and serve meals. And we always suggest having a family meeting maybe once a week, and just, how are things going? So if there was something that was an issue between siblings or between mom and, daughter, being able to talk about that, what they're planning to do, what supports are needed this week. I've got some tests coming up online that maybe I could really use some help in studying, whatever that might be, just allowing that open line of communication to continue. There is unfortunately a lot of special events that teens, children, have missed, whether that's, something from graduation, a prom, or class trip, to even whatever you may have had for family rituals. And maybe it was, we go to every opening day of baseball, or they aren't able to engage in their sports and other extracurricular activities. They're disappointed. They're missing out on something. Okay, so rather than discounting it, it's not a big deal, everybody's going through it, really acknowledge, I know this is really hard. You've really looked forward to this for a long time. So I want to really see, how can I honor those missed events, and having a virtual school graduation with family members, inviting them to speak about how proud they are of the graduate, putting together a video or montage of photos, highlights of their life, whatever it might be, coming up with just something to be able to honor that event that they missed. Virtual prom is another one. And so really trying to get creative and saying, how can I at least acknowledge, this event, in creating this, for many of our children, rites of passage. We want to get really creative. And as parents, if you are working remotely or you're not working right now, you're home, this is a time to really get creative but show your playful side, which often, again, we get so focused on our daily routine, which is, very serious, very structured. So really act out of character, some of these crazy things that, are playful and childlike, painting a wall, building a tent in the living room, posting those glowing stars on the ceiling, and then doing stargazing nights, or dress up, choose a period of time, bringing the music, activities that are, associated with that time, doing Zoom game nights, movie nights, and just getting creative. What can we do instead of focusing on all that we can't do? What are the things we can? And of course, we can get really silly, choose a theme, and kind of act out regardless of, the age of our children, you're not too old. And so to be able to do some like little craziness. So who will you become? In this time, when you think of it as we're going through this pandemic, it's normal for us to give attention to anyone in crisis or when they've experienced a trauma. So at this time, you're home, you've got the opportunity, it's really natural for us to express that compassion and empathy, say for our family, what they've missed, what they're missing out on, the experience and feelings as we all go through this. We want to be able to take that same experience with that empathy and compassion, bringing it into our everyday lives. So that is the way that we pay attention to our children and really redefining how we connect with them. And it's going to take a concerted effort when normalcy returns, your work, school schedule resumes, but to be mindful to hold on to as many changes that you've made personally or within the family. And this piece is really going to make the difference between, and there was a slide previously with the ducks. How was your day? Good. How was school? Fine. Okay, that's what we want to avoid. We don't want your children coming home. How was your day? Fine, good, okay. They go to their room and they post something on social media about being bullied and how they want to harm themselves or how depressed they are, whatever it might be. We want them to come in, and when you ask them how was school, for them to say it wasn't very good, and this is why. No one sat with me at lunch. They picked on me. The kids were laughing at me. They made fun of me. I just don't understand. I have no friends. I just don't want to go back to school. I'm so depressed. That's what we want, for you to sit there and listen and then say, must be really hard for you. How can I support you? What do you need from me? Okay, what is it that would be helpful right now? And of course, if they don't know, I just offer an alternative. This might be a good time to have some ice cream. This might be a good time for you and I to do something that, may be meaningful, that you both enjoy, to be able to go to that place. So beyond the crisis, we really do want to retain some of that family time and rituals, important for parents to continue practicing self-care. We suggest attending community parent support groups. As I mentioned, whether they're online or in the community, just really connecting with parents, regardless of their personal, like the issue, the feelings are the same. The guilt, the shame, the lack of control, the fear, the anxiety. So connecting with other parents, getting some professional help if you need it from a therapist, and really be gentle on yourself. Okay, to be able to go through this process and not expect perfection. This is really about, we keep the lines of communication open and build upon your progress. Keep practicing your new skills. It's not going to be perfect. We first start working with parents, I will say, initially invalidate. And then there may be one moment that the parents validate. And then the next time we keep working on it. Okay, until we shift that. And now there's more validation and less invalidation. It is a process to change something that we have consistently been doing for years. So just holding on to the goal that you want to have that more meaningful, deeper connection with your child, where they are free to come to you and share whatever they're feeling or thinking, which is really the ultimate gift that you can give to your child, to have that space, and also to yourself, to be able to know what is going on with your child and how you can be a positive contributor, how you can help with that. And as I said, it's a process. And so with that, I want to thank you all for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Kim to be able to go through if we have any questions.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Barb, so much. That was wonderful as always. I always learn something new to do with my own 17-year-old son who is having difficulties right now during the pandemic. So we do have a question, and just a reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, you can put that in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So we have a question: when social distancing is over, how do we handle our teens' request to hang out again with bad influence friends?
Okay, so it really depends upon the age. Okay, so it may be a little bit different with a 13-year-old versus 17, or when we're talking teen, we're talking 18, 19, whatever. However, we do this all the time at Newport Academy. Part of our treatment is developing a family agreement. And in that family agreement, I always say there's 3 sets of friends. And there are the negative influencers. Those might be the drug users or just the ones that are really negative influences. And they're on the no contact list. And then we have those that, they may socially drink or smoke pot, but they're really supportive and they've been relationship, really good friends since kindergarten. And they're maybe under the supervised list. And then you've got those that are really supportive. So what we do is we put parameters around. And so if your child only has the first list, all of their friends are negative influences, and maybe there's drugs involved, okay, we would suggest to parents, and this is where it really depends. Okay, we don't want your child to be, isolating where they have no friends because you've cut them off from everyone, but we don't want them to have free reign and access to those that we know are going to give them drugs or that engage in just really negative behaviors. So we might start with, okay, this one, no, and we're going to go through and we're going to hear, why do you want to have a relationship, or what's supportive about that friendship? Okay, what do you get from that? What is it built on? Because the negative influencing peers, typically the relationship is built on the negative influences, the drinking, the drugs. It's a superficial relationship. It's not like they genuinely care about you. When you're not doing or engaging in those negative behaviors, they're not going to be your friends. So we try to get, if your child is old enough for them to see that, okay, and if they've had any consequences based on being in those relationships, such as, well, you were hanging out with those friends and you all got caught, smoking pot, so you got a ticket, or you got arrested, or this happened. You want to bring it back to, that occurred. And so being with that friend, why would it be any different? Rather than completely cut them off from all of their friends, if there are some that are more supportive, that are just not totally bad influences, we suggest having, having the teen bring them over. So this is what we're going to do. I'd like for them to come over to our house. So we know that, you hanging out with them is going to be supervised. I'm not going to be in the room. You can all be in the rec room or whatever. I just want to I'm going to feel better. And once I can really, trust that things have changed in that relationship, or, trust that your friends are respectful of, me not wanting you to engage in A, B, and C, whatever that might be. Okay, then we may be able to, ease up on some of these restrictions. Okay, but we're going to take it and we're going to build on this. So for now, we're going to limit it to they come to our house. Okay, and I'll be supervising. And then we may go to this step where you can go to their house and then you can go to, say, out in the public, like a mall or, shopping, whatever, some kind of event, whatever that might be. Okay, but we want to build upon that. We do that all the time. So whether it is amidst the pandemic and we're doing social distancing, it doesn't matter. As parents, you really do need to put down some boundaries, but doing it in a respectful way. Okay, so that you don't want it to be, no, you're not going to see them.
What if the negative influence friends are emotionally draining to your child. No drug usage or negative behaviors, but the friend takes my child down a negative emotional path that my child does not see.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times, that happens where our children don't see really that, how codependent they are on those friendships. And it might be because they don't have any other friends, but this happens frequently where a lot of teens just kind of feel like I'm responsible for that person's feelings, or I need to be with them because if I'm not, they may do something like harm themselves. So, like, as if I'm in control and it's my responsibility to take care of them. Okay, this is a process. And again, you don't want it to be, no, you're not going to see them, because we know as parents, as soon as we tell a teen, no, you are forbidden from seeing him, you may as well throw them in their arms, because they are going to go and do exactly what we've just said not to do. Okay, so we don't want to go to that extreme. So if the teen, as we're going through this process, if they're old enough to understand and remember, the adolescent brain is not going to be able to logically, rationally kind of go through this and say, aha, this makes total sense. Okay, their brain just isn't developed yet. We want them to see how this relationship is not supportive of them. Okay, so just giving them. So let me ask you, when you're with this person, how do you feel? What are you getting from this relationship? How do they support you? And just asking questions for them to reflect upon and opening up the dialogue. You don't want to cut the relationship off immediately, because again, that's going to throw your child into, a state of, now I have no friends. Okay. And then really helping them to see, like, what is a codependent relationship, and focusing on their sense of self. If they're in a codependent relationship and it's that relationship is emotionally draining them, okay, then they have really low self-esteem, that they feel that this is the best relationship I can get. Okay, this is what I deserve. Okay, because it is somewhat like abusive to be in an emotionally draining relationship. And so we want to help our children to see that it's not a healthy relationship. Let me show you what a healthy relationship looks like. Okay, and educating them and guiding them.
Okay, we have one more of a comment, really. One of our attendees says, can you create a slide with the 90% validation, 90% is validation, and 10% is blank? She said she couldn't write fast enough.
Okay.
And a sample response modeling this. Your example was great, but I need to see it to practice/learn it.
Yep. So basically, I'll repeat that, is 90% validation and 10% rationalization. So in other words, okay, I'm going to give you an example, and this would apply to anything that your child wants. But I'm going to take the example of, we have a teen in treatment, they don't want to be there. They are badgering their parents to take them home. They're not focused on treatment. Get me out of here. I want to come home. I want to come home. Okay, for the parents. Okay, the 90% validation is, I understand you want to come home. Okay, that you miss sleeping in your own bed and being with the dog, seeing your friends. We miss you too. There's a void in our family. And we really can't wait for you to be home. See, I'm validating. Okay, and here's my 10%. However, we made a commitment. You're here, and this is what we're going to do. So I'm not taking you home. Real simple. Okay, there I held the boundary. So it would be the same thing. I want to go to this party, whatever it is. I know you want to go. I understand. That makes sense. But at the end, as your mom, I'm going to tell you, I can't let you go. It's not a good idea. Okay, it's not safe. Okay, instead of, like I said, all of the blame.
Again, thank you, Dr. Barb, and
thank you,
Kristen.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Dr. Barb. It was so helpful. As the parent of a teenage daughter, the struggle is real these days. We'd like to thank each of you for attending this series, and we want to invite you to our next one, which is strategies for parents to manage and reduce anxiety in order to best support yourself and your child. And it'll be presented by Heather Senior Monroe, May 21st at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. And we look forward to seeing you guys there. If you have any questions about Newport Academy, feel free to go to the website, newportacademy.com. Thank you all so much.